Welcome to part 2 of the rig tying series. So today we're going to unveil a rig that most people may not have used. You probably haven't made it before. It's called the Fishin Mortician. Say it real fast, Fishin Mortician. And so let's talk a little bit about how it was created. I mean, what is it?
Well, if anybody's ever watched Sinker Guy videos, like he does talk about the Fishin Mortician rig and use it. And unfortunately, I don't know the guy's name, who the Fishin Mortician is. It's an actual person, and he's got a brilliant mind. He comes up with all these crazy good rigs to use for fishing. So that's really, the rig is just named after him because it's one of the rigs that, he came up with.
If you know his name, drop it in the comments.
Yeah, please do that, because I want to give the Fishin Mortician credit for this, because obviously he came up with a lot of brilliant ideas for in the fishing industry.
Right.
So that's where the Fishin Mortician rig came from, was the Fishin Mortician. Okay.
And so we went over the double dropper, pros, cons, benefits. What's the difference? I mean, what's the selling point of this one?
Well, there's a couple selling points for the Fishin Mortician rig. One, remember how on the double dropper rig, whatever pound test line that we wanted to use to make the rig, that's what we were stuck with.
Okay.
Now there's like the Fishin Mortician rig is actually like a 2-part rig. So you make the main part, which your snap swivel and your regular swivel is attached to, and you can make that whatever pound test you want. So if you want to do it 30 pound, 40 pound, 50 pound, it's really beneficial. So again, if you're going to cast those heavy 5-ounce weight and really put some heat to it to bomb a long cast, you're going to have more heavy pound test line to actually absorb that shock. So that's the first thing where that's really beneficial. The second thing is you have the part 2 of it, which is like kind of free swiveling around, which we'll see once I actually make the rig. And those are very easily replaced. So let's say you're fishing a Fishin Mortician rig, you go out there, you hook a shark, you hook a bluefish, it cuts you off. You can just replace those little, they call them snoods, very easily, and then just tie up, put a new snood on, cast it right back out and keep fishing. So those are the real benefits for it.
Okay. So are the materials different? I mean, what do we use specifically to make those here?
Well, you can use multiple things. Again, we use monofilament. Now, some people will do the main body of the rig in monofilament, and then they'll do fluorocarbon little snoods.
Okay.
So if you're fishing real clear water and you want to like have a 40-pound main piece of the body of the rig, and then you want to run like a 15-pound fluorocarbon at like 10 or 11 inches or 8 inches, whatever size you want to make it. Now you have the ability to cast those heavy weights out far for long casts, but still have a really small profile snood, you know what I mean, that'll be more invisible to the fish.
Okay.
So that's another huge benefit. So for our sake, we're just going to make it with a 40-pound main body, and we'll just do like 20-pound for the little snood to show you how to make those as well.
Okay. Anything different on the hooks, or are those kind of the same?
Well, we personally use different hooks when we tie these rigs. So we use the Eagle Claw Circle Cs because they have a really big eye to do the double dropper rigs. The hooks that I like to use for the Fishin Mortician rig is the Owner Mutu lights. So hook size doesn't really matter. The biggest that we do is a 2.0 size hook, but then again, depending on what bait we're using or what we're fishing for, we may go all the way down to a size 1.
Okay.
So that hook size, build your rigs and use your hooks for what you're actually targeting. Don't build like a one-size-fits-all Fishin Mortician rig. So those are the different hooks that we use for this one.
Okay. And so I mean, I think we covered the benefits. Are there any cons to this particular one?
I really don't think so. This is a pretty solid rig that I don't think a lot of people use. Like I said, some people talk about it, like the Sinker Guy mentions it. You can't really buy them in tackle stores. I looked online to try to find some, and I didn't find Fishin Mortician rigs anywhere. So if this is one of the rigs that you want to have in your arsenal, this is definitely one that you're going to have to either make for yourself or message the Sinker Guy and see if he'll make you some. So either way it'll work, but that's really a really nice beneficial rig.
Okay. Well, let's make it.
Let's get to it.
Okay, so we've talked about the benefits, the pros, the cons, all of the material that we use to make the Fishin Mortician rig. Let's make it.
Let's do it. So for this one, like we talked about, we're going to use the main body, and this is just 40-pound momoes, whatever we want to call it, monofilament. So we're going to build the main body of the rig first. So the first thing that we're going to do is take our little barrel swivel. And again, for this, I'm just going to tie a basic clinch knot, which is just wrapping the tag end of the line up the main body, passing it over, go through the circle of the hook, and then you just pull it down. So you have that little guy. And again, make sure you lubricate your knots with some saliva. You don't want to burn your mono. I'm going to clip off the tag end. Now I have this stuff set up on a rig board. You do not need a rig board to make the Fishin Mortician rig. I just have this, and I have, you probably can't see it, but I have different measurements made on my rig board. So I have 8 inches, a foot, 16 inches, 20 inches, 24, or 2 feet. So that way I kind of have a ruler per se on here. So that way you can make these rigs as consistent as possible. So if you just had a yardstick and you wanted to put it down on a table, you could do the same thing. But I just happen to have the rig board because I just put my spools of line on there and it just makes it easy. So now that I have my swivel on the top, I'm going to hold it to the edge of my rig board, and I'm going to go down and I'm going to measure 16 inches. So that's going to be the space to the first part that I have to do. So now what we need to do is make a figure 8 knot. So in order to make a figure 8 knot, you just take it and you make a loop and pinch it together with your fingers. Now you pass the line over, or like kind of around, and drop through the bottom. And when you pull it through, I mean, you can literally see it makes like a figure 8. So you're just going to tighten that guy down. That's going to be the upper stop for the Fishin Mortician rig, for the little snoot that goes on there. So now what I'm going to do is a little bit down from there, let's say an inch or 2 down from there, I'm going to make another figure 8 knot. So again, loop over, wrap around, drop that guy through, and then pull that down, and the other piece is going to come down, and now the other figure 8 knots there, and both of those are tightened. Now the reason not to use it, or to use a figure 8 knot, excuse me, is when you make that knot and you tighten it down, it's not going to really clinch down and hurt the integrity of the monofilament at all. So now you can see there's a little gap there, and that's where your actual snoot is going to go. So now if you would like, from the bottom one, you can measure another, I'll go 20 inches for this one. And then I'm just going to cut that off. And I'm going to tie my snap swivel to the bottom of this. Now for this example, I'm just going to do a single dropper loop. And once in a while we do fish single dropper loops. Usually the Fishin Mortician rig, we fish as a single dropper. However, if you did want to make this a double dropper Fishin Mortician rig, you could do that. All you would have to do is just measure out the distance and then do the 2 figure 8 knots again, and then you could have a double dropper Fishin Mortician rig. I personally, or we personally, just usually fish the single dropper, but only thing that's different between the single and the double is obviously you just have to tie 2 more figure 8 knots and a measured distance down to the bottom.
So what are the benefits between a single dropper and a double dropper?
I don't know. I really like that answer. I don't have a die-hard like good answer to, other than it's just a little bit cleaner. You know, I guess sometimes when you go through, I mean, if you have a lot of rigs out there, it's just something different. Maybe there's less rig bait in the water. You know, it's just easier. Maybe you get a little more casting distance because instead of having 2 baits flopping in the wind, you just have the 1 dropper part of it. So it's really preference. Some people don't fish double dropper rigs at all. They'll just fish a single dropper rig, and that's what they put in their spread. So. Now another clinch knot to hold our sinker guy sinker on. So again, we're just going to wrap it up the monofilament, go down, pass it through the loop. We would normally lubricate that and then just pull it tight, and now you have that. We'll clip the tag end. And now you can see we have the actual, just the regular single dropper, and this is what I consider like the body part of the Fishin Mortician rig. So now the only thing left to do is actually make the snoot itself. And this is one of the benefits. So now we have 40-pound test that's going to attach to our main line and our bottom clip. Okay, so we have that 40-pound strength to cast those heavier sinkers. And now we're whatever pound test line or whatever material, whether we want to do monofilament, fluorocarbon, or whatever, it's just going to wrap around this, and you guys will see that. So I'm just going to set this down here.
What exactly is a snood?
Well, we're going to show you and everybody out there what a snood is. Why it's called a snood, I don't know. I got
just like that word.
Yep. So for this example, what we're going to do is we're just going to use some 20-pound test mono. Again, I like mono. Maybe there's a catch rate difference where people, you know, catch more on fluorocarbon than mono. I've never really seen that to be true, but again, there's probably people that fish further down south in really clear water that would swear that they need, you know, they need that really invisibility for that clear water.
Yeah.
Up here in the Northeast Florida, yeah, there's some clean water. Sometimes it won't be as clear as like down in Palm Beach County where it's like crystal clear water.
But I mean, we've been very successful with mono, so.
Yeah, that's why, yeah, if it works, you know, we'll keep going with it. So what I did here, this is the part of the snood, and you can cut a length piece, whatever you want, but I just clipped off a little piece because the first thing that we're gonna do is actually snell the hook on this line and make it nice and streamlined. So
Snood, snell.
Snood, snell, yep.
That's fun words.
So we have our owner Mutu light hook, and we're just gonna snell that on a hook. If you've never snelled a hook before, I'll give you a quick video of this. So you're gonna run the line through the eye of the hook and just kind of pinch it against the body of the hook, all right? Then what you're gonna do is wrap the other line down the shank of the hook. So I'm gonna do it here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And once you do your wraps, you wanna kind of just pinch that so the coils don't come unwound. Now you want to take your other end of your line, pass it back through the eye of the hook, and pull it through like that, and there is your snell. It's not really a knot, so the break strength is really, really tough on that, and it's very streamlined. So then what I'll do is just my little end right here, I'll just clip that off. Now that's the first part of our snood. Now we have the hook snelled to the line.
Does it have to be 7 times around? Can it be more, less? I mean, what's the theory behind 7?
Lucky number 7? I don't know. I mean, that's why I do 7 wraps. I mean, I'm sure you could do 5. I'm sure you could wrap down even further if you wanted to. I just think that's a pretty good length and amount of wraps to do, because if you go too far down the hook, and let's say you catch a bluefish or something and you catch one of those, now the knot or the snell is going to come undone. Right. So I use 7. Some people may do 6, 11, like who knows, but 7 is just where I do it. So now we have that. Now, when we fish the Fishin Mortician rig, we really usually don't put any color or any float on. Okay, we'll just fish this just like this. Maybe you know, hook a live sand flea through it, and then I mean, it is just, you have good invisibility. Again, if you use a lower pound test, this is 20. Sometimes we go down to 15 pound test. If you're going to use fluorocarbon, again, you can make this a really invisible rig to just kind of lay there on the bottom.
Just let the bait do the work.
Just let the bait do the work. You're absolutely right. And if you do want to add some color to these,
fish bites.
Fish bites, yeah. I mean, fish bites come in a variety of colors. I mean, you can get greens, orange, whatever you want. Put a little nugget of fish bite on there with your sand flea or your clam, whatever it is, and then you naturally have your colors like in the tractor for it. So now that we have that, now what we're gonna do is just make our snood. And this is the one thing, like, it's hard to make these like perfectly like 8 inches or 9 inches. So I just give kind of a roundabout way to do it. So now we're gonna form a loop in the line here, and we're just gonna do a double overhand knot. And you wanna make these as small as possible, but for the purpose of the demonstration, I'm gonna make the loop a little bit bigger. So we made our loop. I just kind of go here and I pinch it with my fingers. Now I'm gonna pass my loop through the circle come on fingers. Pass it through once, and then I'm gonna pass it through another time twice. So now you can kind of see on there how I just did basically an overhand knot, a double overhand knot for the loop there. And here we have our loop. So then we would lubricate this, just pull that and clinch that down tight, okay? Yeah. We will trim the tag end off here. And now you can see this is the snood. So you have a loop, you have your hook at the end, and that's your snood piece. Now, you can sit down, and for a Fishin Mortician rig, you can make the one main body of it, and then you can have 20 of these snoods,
ready to go.
And they're ready to go. So if a bluefish snipped you off, you could either tie a knot on and just tie another hook on real quick, or if it really snipped you off far and you didn't have enough room to retie, you can literally just cut this off the main body, loop it back on. So I'm going to get...
You dropped it. She was the one that got away.
Yep.
Oh, she's back.
She's back. So now I have my main body, and if you would just hold one end here so I can kind of do a demo and show this. I'm going to slide this over here so you can see. So we have our 2 figure-8 jam knots, I guess you'd call them, in the little area right here that the snood will go around. So now all we have to do is unhook our hook. You think those circle hooks don't find the corner of a fish's mouth? Can't even not get them.
Find everything.
You'll find everything. So now I have this, and all we're going to do is just pass the hook through the end of the loop and then pull it tight. It's kind of easier to do when it's rigged up on a rod.
Yeah.
And you want to keep that little loop in between the 2. So you see where I just loop that through, and now it's not really tight right now, but it's around, and those 2 little figure-8 knots are going to jam this and keep this from sliding all the way up and down, because you want to have this at a specific length, you know what I mean? You don't want to have this going all the way up and down. So once I tighten that down, now when it slides forward and backwards, it's going to stop at those figure-8 jams and stop it from going. So then it'll stay in the position. So now when this is set up, you have your sinker here stuck in the sand. This is going to the rod in the main line, and you can kind of see, depending on the angle, that'll just sit right there. Now on the main camera, you can see this gives a lot of movement. So as you can see, this is not going to tangle around your line. So if you've ever had like a double dropper rig or something that just kind of wrapped down the line, yep, this one, as you can see, it'll just swing around there, swing around there, swing around there, and it won't get tangled up. Yeah, it does look like a lot of fun. I'm sure a sand flea doesn't think so when it's about to get eaten, but either way, that's like that. And when you hook a fish on this rig and it's on there and hooked, it's just going to tighten down that area of the rig right here between the 2 figure-8 knots, and then that's just going to make it tighter and tighter, so it holds up really good. So that's pretty much it, start to finish. I mean, that's your Fishin' Mortician. And again, please leave in the comments below the name of the Fishin' Mortician, because again, to give this guy credit, this is an amazing surf fishing rig to use, and you can see it really good in visibility. One other thing I would say, if you live in South Florida where they have those pesky spotted crabs, calico crabs, those things that just destroy your bait, you can add a float to these if you would like to. So if you want to use a float to kind of get this up off the bottom, you can add a float. Just when we're up here in Northeast Florida fishing, we just fish them. We just fish them bare, and a blue crab will eat your bait sometime. But overall, hopefully a pompano or a whiting will find it first.
It always happens. Everybody gets crabbed.
Yep. But that's it. Awesome. Fishin' Mortician rig. You can have that one.
Oh, my gift. Yeah, solid rig. I mean, we caught some pretty amazing fish on this thing.
Yep.
So, there it is, guys. Go get you some. So we just recapped. Actually, I'm recapping now. Can't recap. But either way, we just went through how to make the Fishin' Mortician rig, which has its benefits over the double dropper for sure. You know, it's definitely maybe a little more complicated to make.
At first, but
but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. But definitely ups your game.
It does. Ups
the fishing game. So we're gonna move on to the last of the series, which you probably have never heard of before. And if you have, again, it's probably gonna be a little bit harder to make. But I'm telling you, your success rate is going to go through the roof. So don't be mad that we're revealing this secret, y'all. It's happening.